She came with a medical kit and a quiet smile. No one looked twice until the general arrived. He scanned the roster, stopped at one name, and stared. "Where did you say you served?" he asked. And when she answered, his eyes filled with something no one expected: respect. They thought she was just another medical officer. Lieutenant Emily Rodriguez had been assigned to Naval Special Warfare Training Center for barely 3 weeks, carrying her medical supplies with the same quiet efficiency that had defined her entire career. At 5 feet 3 inches and 115 pounds, with soft brown eyes and a gentle demeanor, she looked exactly like what everyone expected from a military nurse: competent, caring, and completely non-threatening. She moved through the training compound like a whisper, checking on candidates, treating injuries, and maintaining the kind of low profile that made her practically invisible to the warriors in training around her. The SEAL candidates treated her with polite indifference. She was medical support, nothing more. They acknowledged her when necessary, followed her medical instructions when required, and otherwise forgot she existed the moment she left their field of vision. Her quiet professionalism and unassuming presence reinforced every assumption they'd made about her role. She was there to bandage cuts and monitor vital signs, not to be part of their elite warrior world. But sometimes the most dangerous assumptions are the ones we make about people who seem completely ordinary. Welcome to Silent Salute, where we discover that extraordinary capabilities often hide behind the most ordinary appearances. Before we continue this incredible story, tell us in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe that true strength often comes in the most unexpected forms, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. We're honored to share these remarkable stories with you. Class 319 was particularly intense. 26 candidates from diverse military backgrounds, all pushing themselves through the most demanding training program in the American military. The daily routine was brutal: endless physical conditioning, underwater demolition exercises, tactical simulations, and psychological challenges designed to break all but the most determined warriors. Through it all, Lieutenant Rodriguez moved quietly in the background, providing medical support with the same steady competence she'd shown throughout her career. The candidates had settled into their routine assumptions about her. She was professional, knowledgeable about medical procedures, and reliable in her support role. But none of them had ever wondered about her background, her previous assignments, or what experiences had shaped her into the person she'd become. To them, she was simply Doc or Lieutenant, depending on their level of formality, and that was enough. Among the candidates was Staff Sergeant Marcus Chun, a former Army Ranger who'd served multiple combat tours before applying for SEAL training. Chun was respected by his fellow candidates for his tactical knowledge and combat experience, but he shared the common assumption that medical personnel were essentially non-combatants who supported rather than participated in military operations. "She's good at what she does," Chun had commented to his teammate during their second week. "But I sometimes wonder if medical staff really understand what we're preparing for out here." Petty Officer Williams, who'd served as a hospital corpsman before SEAL training, tried to provide some perspective. "Medical personnel see plenty of combat results, Chun. They understand more than you might think." But Chin's attitude reflected the broader disconnect between combat arms and medical personnel that existed throughout the military. Medical staff were respected for their skills, but they weren't considered part of the warrior culture that defined special operations. The situation that would change everything began during the 4th week of training when Class 319 was scheduled for advanced weapons training, including live-fire exercises with explosive devices. This was one of the most dangerous phases of SEAL training, where candidates learned to handle military explosives under realistic conditions while maintaining the kind of precision that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Lieutenant Rodriguez was assigned to provide medical support for the training. Evolution, positioned at a safe distance from the live-fire exercises, but close enough to respond immediately if accidents occurred. Her role was essentially passive: monitor the candidates, be prepared for emergency medical treatment, and ensure that anyone injured received immediate care. The training was being conducted on a remote section of the base where candidates could use live explosives without endangering other personnel. The exercises were carefully controlled, with multiple safety protocols and experienced instructors supervising every aspect of the training. But working with military explosives always carried inherent risks that could turn dangerous in seconds. General Patricia Hayes had arrived that morning for an unscheduled inspection of the training facility. As the Deputy Commander of Naval Special Warfare, General Hayes was one of the most senior officers in the special operations community, with a reputation for demanding excellence and maintaining the highest standards of operational readiness. Her visits were always significant events that commanded attention throughout the training command. General Hayes moved through the facility with the kind of authoritative presence that made everyone straighten their posture and sharpen their focus. She observed training evolutions, spoke with instructors, and reviewed candidate performance with the detailed attention that had made her legendary throughout the military. When she reached the explosive training area, General Hayes positioned herself at the observation point where she could monitor the exercises while reviewing candidate files and training records. Lieutenant Rodriguez was at her medical station nearby, maintaining her usual quiet professionalism while staying ready to respond to any medical emergencies. As General Hayes reviewed the training records, she came across Lieutenant Rodriguez's personnel file. Something about the background information caught her attention immediately. She read through the file more carefully, then looked up at the small, unassuming nurse who was quietly organizing her medical supplies. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," General Hayes called out, her voice carrying across the training area. Emily looked up from her medical preparations, somewhat surprised to be addressed by such a senior officer. "Yes, ma'am. Would you mind joining me for a moment?" Emily walked over to where General Hayes was standing, maintaining the professional bearing that had characterized her entire military career. "How can I help you, General?" General Hayes held up the personnel file, her expression reflecting growing interest and something that might have been recognition. "Lieutenant, I'm looking at your service record. Where did you say you served before this assignment?" The question seemed routine, but something in General Hayes's tone suggested it was anything but casual. "Ma'am, I served with the 82nd Airborne Division as a combat medic before transitioning to nursing service." General Hayes's eyes narrowed slightly as she processed this information. "The 82nd Airborne. What was your specific assignment there?" Emily's answer was straightforward and professional. "I served with the 1st Battalion, 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment, ma'am. Combat medic attached to Alpha Company." The moment Emily mentioned the 508th PAR, General Hayes's entire demeanor changed. Her expression shifted from professional interest to something much more intense. Recognition mixed with what looked like genuine respect. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," General Hayes said, her voice carrying new weight, "the 508th PAR. Were you deployed with them to Afghanistan in 2018? Emily nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I served 2 deployments with the 508th. General Hayes was quiet for a moment, processing this information against what she was seeing in the personnel file. When she looked back at Emily, her expression had transformed completely. "Lieutenant, I need to ask you something specific. During your 2nd deployment, were you involved in an incident near Forward Operating Base Chapman?" Emily's response was immediate and precise. "Yes, ma'am. Operation Resolute Strike, September 2018. The moment Emily confirmed her involvement in Operation Resolute Strike, General Hayes's expression filled with something that no one in the training area had expected: unmistakable respect and recognition. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," General Hayes said quietly, "you're the medic who saved Lieutenant Colonel Morrison's life during that operation." Emily nodded simply. "I was part of the medical team that provided care during that mission, ma'am." But General Hayes was looking at her with the kind of intensity that suggested she knew much more about what had happened during Operation Resolute Strike than Emily's modest response indicated. The candidates and instructors in the training area had stopped their activities to watch this unexpected interaction between the general and their quiet nurse. Something significant was happening, but none of them understood what it meant. General Hayes continued her questioning, but now her tone carried the kind of professional respect reserved for proven warriors. "Lieutenant, according to this file, you were awarded the Silver Star for your actions during that operation. Is that correct?" Emily's response maintained the same professional modesty. "Yes, ma'am. I received that recognition for my actions during the mission." The Silver Star was the 3rd highest decoration for valor in the U.S. military, awarded only for gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States. The fact that their quiet nurse had received such a prestigious award was shocking to everyone listening. Staff Sergeant Chun, who'd been working with explosives nearby, had stopped what he was doing to listen to the conversation. He was beginning to understand that Lieutenant Rodriguez's background was far more complex than anyone had realized. General Hayes was reviewing the personnel file more carefully now, and what she was reading was clearly impressing her. Lieutenant, your file indicates that you served with distinction in multiple high-risk operations. Would you mind sharing some details about your combat experience? Emily's answer reflected the kind of professional discretion that was expected in special operations environments. Ma'am, I participated in several combat operations as a medic attached to infantry units. My role was to provide medical support during tactical missions. But General Hayes was clearly reading between the lines of Emily's modest response. She understood that Emily was being deliberately understated about experiences that had obviously been far more significant than she was indicating. The situation took an unexpected turn when the explosive training evolution encountered a serious problem. One of the candidates, Petty Officer Jackson, was working with a live grenade when something went wrong with the timing mechanism. Instead of the standard 5-second delay, the grenade's fuse had malfunctioned, creating an immediate danger to everyone in the training area. Malfunction! Malfunction! The instructor shouted, but Jackson was frozen in place, holding a live grenade that could explode at any moment. The standard protocol in such situations was immediate evacuation of the area, but Jackson was too close to other candidates to simply throw the grenade away safely. The malfunction had created a potentially catastrophic situation where multiple lives were at immediate risk. Everyone in the training area was processing the emergency, but before any of the instructors could react, Lieutenant Rodriguez moved with speed and precision that shocked everyone watching. She sprinted across the training area, covering the distance to Jackson in seconds. Without hesitation, she grabbed the malfunctioning grenade from his hands and immediately began working on it with her bare hands. What happened next defied everything the candidates thought they knew about their quiet nurse. Emily examined the grenade for less than 2 seconds, identified the specific type of malfunction, and then began carefully manipulating the fuse mechanism. Her hands moved with the kind of precise confidence that comes from extensive training and experience. She wasn't panicking or calling for help. She was systematically disarming a live explosive device while everyone around her held their breath. The entire procedure took less than 15 seconds. Emily carefully isolated the fuse mechanism, neutralized the explosive charge, and then safely disposed of the neutralized device. She accomplished this with the same calm professionalism she'd shown while treating routine medical problems. The training area was completely silent. 26 SEAL candidates, multiple instructors, and a 2-star general stood frozen, staring at a 115-pound nurse who had just disarmed a live grenade with her bare hands. General Hayes was the first to speak. Lieutenant Rodriguez, where did you learn explosive ordnance disposal techniques? Emily's answer was characteristically modest. Ma'am, I received cross-training in EOD procedures during my combat deployments. Medical personnel often encounter unexploded ordnance during casualty evacuation operations. But General Hayes was looking at her with the kind of recognition that suggested she understood exactly what Emily's cross-training had actually involved. Lieutenant, General Hayes said, your personnel file indicates that you completed the full EOD certification course. Is that correct? Emily nodded. Yes, ma'am. I completed EOD training to enhance my effectiveness as a combat medic. The revelation that their quiet nurse was also a certified explosive ordnance disposal technician was staggering to everyone listening. EOD certification was among the most demanding and dangerous specializations in the military, requiring extensive training and exceptional skill. Staff Sergeant Chin approached Emily with an expression of complete amazement. Ma'am, you're EOD certified? How did you manage to complete that training while serving as a medic? Emily's answer reflected the kind of professional development that was common among the most dedicated military personnel. I completed the EOD course during my off-duty time because I believed it would make me more effective in combat situations where medical and explosive hazards intersected. General Hayes was reviewing Emily's file with new understanding. Lieutenant, your record shows that you used EOD skills during combat operations. Can you provide some details about those experiences? Emily's response maintained operational security while providing some insight into her background. Ma'am, I participated in several missions where medical evacuation required dealing with explosive hazards. The EOD training proved essential for casualty recovery operations. But General Hayes was clearly reading much more into Emily's modest explanations than she was explicitly stating. Lieutenant Rodriguez, General Hayes said, I'm going to ask you a direct question. Are you the medic who crawled through a minefield to reach wounded soldiers during the Cunner Province operation? Emily's answer was simple and direct. Yes, ma'am. That was part of my responsibilities during that mission. General Hayes looked at her with undisguised respect. Lieutenant, you crawled through an active minefield, disarmed 3 improvised explosive devices, and provided medical care to wounded soldiers under enemy fire. That's not standard medic responsibilities. That's extraordinary courage under the most dangerous conditions imaginable. The candidates were beginning to understand that their quiet nurse had experiences that exceeded those of most special operations personnel. Crawling through minefields to save wounded soldiers was the kind of heroic action that became legendary in military circles. Petty Officer Williams, the former corpsman, approached with obvious respect. Ma'am, is it true that you've been in actual combat situations where you had to use both medical and EOD skills simultaneously? Emily's answer reflected the reality of modern combat operations. In Afghanistan, medical emergencies often occurred in areas contaminated with explosive devices. You couldn't separate medical and EOD responsibilities. They were part of the same mission. General Hayes was now looking at Emily with the kind of professional recognition reserved for the most exceptional military personnel. Lieutenant, your combination of medical expertise and EOD capability is extremely rare. How many combat medics have your level of cross-training? Emily's response was characteristically modest. Ma'am, I'm not sure about the exact numbers, but several medics in my unit pursued additional training to enhance their effectiveness. But General Hayes was clearly understanding that Emily's capabilities were far from common. The combination of combat medical training and EOD certification, combined with proven combat experience, represented an exceptionally rare skill set. The training evolution continued, but now with a completely different dynamic. The candidates were processing the fact that their quiet nurse had capabilities that exceeded their own in several critical areas. She wasn't just medical support. She was a proven combat veteran with specialized skills that were essential to special operations. Later that day, General Hayes requested a private meeting with Emily to discuss her background and potential future assignments. Lieutenant Rodriguez, General Hayes began, I've reviewed your complete service record, and I'm impressed by your combination of medical expertise, EOD capability, and combat experience. Have you considered applying for special operations training yourself? Emily's answer reflected her deliberate choice of medical service. Ma'am, I considered special operations early in my career, but I decided I could contribute more effectively by supporting warriors than by being one. General Hayes respected her choice, but she was also considering how Emily's unique capabilities might be utilized more effectively. Lieutenant, your skill set is exactly what we need for developing more realistic training scenarios for special operations personnel. She explained that special operations missions often involved medical emergencies in environments contaminated with explosive hazards. Having someone who understood both medical requirements and EOD procedures could significantly improve training effectiveness. Lieutenant, would you be interested in developing integrated training programs that combine medical and EOD challenges? Emily was intrigued by the possibility. Ma'am, I'd be very interested in contributing to enhanced training that better prepares operators for complex operational realities. General Hayes outlined her vision. Emily would continue providing medical support, but she would also develop training scenarios that integrated medical and EOD challenges, preparing candidates for the kind of complex situations they'd encounter in actual operations. Lieutenant, your background positions you to contribute to special operations training in ways that could significantly enhance mission effectiveness. Emily accepted the expanded role, understanding that her unique combination of medical and EOD expertise could benefit special operations training in unprecedented ways. The announcement of Emily's new responsibilities created significant interest throughout the training command. The incident with the malfunctioning grenade had already established her credibility as someone with exceptional capabilities, and her expanded role confirmed that her skills were valued at the highest levels. Staff Sergeant Chen approached Emily after the announcement. "Ma'am, after seeing you handle that grenade malfunction, several of us have been wondering about your background. Would you be willing to share some insights about integrating medical and EOD capabilities?" Emily appreciated Chen's professional interest. "Staff Sergeant, my expanded role will include developing training that incorporates both medical and EOD considerations. You'll be receiving that instruction as part of your curriculum." Chen pressed for more details. "Ma'am, what you demonstrated with that grenade was advanced EOD technique. Where did you develop those capabilities?" Emily decided that transparency would be most effective. "I served multiple combat deployments where medical and EOD responsibilities intersected. You can't effectively save lives in environments contaminated with explosive hazards without understanding both disciplines." Chen was impressed by Emily's integrated approach to capability development. "Ma'am, do you think all combat medics should receive EOD training?" "I think combat medics who support special operations should understand the full spectrum of hazards they might encounter," Emily replied. "Medical emergencies don't occur in sterile environments. They happen in the middle of complex tactical situations." 6 weeks later, Emily's integrated training program culminated in an exercise that would demonstrate the full scope of her capabilities and change how SEAL candidates understood the relationship between medical and EOD operations. The scenario involved a simulated terrorist attack where candidates had to provide medical care to casualties while dealing with multiple explosive hazards. It was designed to replicate the kind of complex, multifaceted emergencies that special operations personnel encountered in actual combat. Emily's role was to participate as both medical provider and EOD specialist, demonstrating how these capabilities could be integrated to enhance mission effectiveness. The exercise began with a simulated explosion that created multiple casualties in an area contaminated with additional improvised explosive devices. Candidates had to provide immediate medical care while identifying and neutralizing explosive hazards that threatened both casualties and rescuers. Emily moved through the exercise area with the kind of integrated expertise that amazed everyone watching. She provided advanced medical care while simultaneously identifying explosive threats, neutralizing dangerous devices, and coordinating evacuation procedures. When the exercise concluded, Emily briefed the candidates on lessons learned from integrated medical EOD operations. "Gentlemen," Emily began, "modern combat operations require integration of multiple capabilities. Medical personnel who understand explosive hazards can operate more effectively in contaminated environments, and EOD specialists who understand medical procedures can better support casualty evacuation operations." General Hayes, who had observed the entire exercise, addressed the candidates. "Lieutenant Rodriguez's performance demonstrates the kind of integrated expertise that defines the future of special operations. Her combination of medical and EOD capabilities enables mission success in environments where traditional single-discipline approaches would fail." She looked around at the candidates who were processing the implications of what they'd witnessed. "Lieutenant Rodriguez represents the kind of cross-training and capability integration that we need throughout special operations." The candidates began to understand that Emily's approach to professional development, integrating multiple disciplines to enhance effectiveness, was exactly what they needed to succeed in modern special operations. Emily's training programs were eventually adopted throughout Special Operations Commands, establishing new standards for integrated medical EOD capability. Her methods influenced military training throughout the Department of Defense and enhanced the effectiveness of special operations personnel worldwide. But perhaps Emily's greatest contribution was demonstrating that true professional excellence required integration of multiple capabilities rather than narrow specialization. Her success as both a medic and an EOD specialist proved that the most effective military personnel were those who refused to be limited by traditional role boundaries. The quiet nurse who had seemed unremarkable proved to be one of the most capable and influential individuals in special operations training. Her example reminded everyone that extraordinary capabilities often hide behind ordinary appearances, and that the most dangerous assumptions are those we make about people we think we understand. Years later, When Emily transitioned to civilian service, she carried the knowledge that she'd contributed to developing more effective special operations training. Her integrated approach to medical and EOD capabilities had enhanced mission effectiveness and potentially saved lives in operations she would never know about. But she also carried the satisfaction of having proven that excellence knew no boundaries, that capability could be integrated across multiple disciplines, and that the most valuable contributors were often those who developed expertise in areas that others considered incompatible. This story was brought to you by Silent Salute. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever encountered someone whose quiet competence concealed extraordinary capabilities across multiple specialized fields? Someone who proved that true expertise comes from integrating different skills rather than narrow specialization? Tell us in the comments about the individuals who surprised you with their integrated capabilities and multidisciplinary expertise. And if you believe that the most effective people are those who refuse to be limited by traditional role boundaries, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Every story reminds us that extraordinary capabilities often hide behind ordinary appearances, and that we should never underestimate the potential of those who seem unremarkable. We'll see you in the next story, where we'll discover another incredible tale of hidden capability and unexpected expertise.